Hello and welcome to this, the first of these recordings being called The Inner Lenses, but in fact, the 49th episode of our Wise Mind Fireside Chats. Our normal friends and conversationalists, Brett Corcoran, Gabby Sheshlock, and Erica Naidoo. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
And we thought, I don't know, dear listener, whether you're aware, but a lot of people seem to really like watching other people watch things. So, with that in mind, we have decided to try and share with you something. So,
Yeah.
bear with us while we watch this gentleman's short.
Have you ever heard the Shoebill stork's mating call? Yeah, we gotta talk about it. Though this may look like a human wearing a bird suit, it's real. The Shoebill stork is definitely one of the few birds that I still consider dinosaurs. Unlike all other birds over 5 feet tall, the Shoebill stork can fly, which is just completely unfair to me. Nothing over 4 feet tall should be able to fly. Luckily for us, Shoebill storks are fairly friendly to humans. Their diet consists of many different creatures, including fish, eel, monitor lizards, and crocodiles. There's one in Uganda named Sushi that lets you pet him as long as you bow first. And with all that being said, they still go straight on my nothing to play with list. And as always, guys, peace and love, baby. Have you?
Peace and love, baby.
Peace and love also to you, Mr. Corey Ewings, and thank you for sharing us this information.
No way. Never.
So, Gabby, I'm going to come to you. A thing not to play
Sorry?
with? Does that go on your list of things not to play with?
No. I think if he bows to me, I would actually go and say hello. It's a very friendly, polite bird.
Have you ever heard of that bird before?
Yes.
Oh, shit. See?
Yeah.
I never heard of it before, and I was scrolling the other day, and I come across this face on my phone, and I almost had a heart attack because we know that my relationship with feathered beings is just not the greatest thing. And then I see one that looks like something out of a horror movie that is taller than me, and I'm like, I am never coming out of my house if I see that thing anywhere near me. There's no way in hell. And it sounds like a machine gun.
Yeah, it's very loud. Yeah.
Do we know where
I've
they
been
live?
in Africa. That's why I know the
Africa.
shoebill. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They're from Africa. That's crazy. That's crazy. Well, I was telling the story because I thought I came across something like some prehistoric creature that nobody ever heard of, right? So I was like, look at this thing, look at this thing. So last night I go to tell Jared, and he's like, yeah, I know that. I know what that is. Have you ever heard it call? I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, you actually know the mating call? And he played it. And it was like, what is that? Like, I thought it was like somebody with a machine gun, but never heard of that thing. It looks terrifying to me. Eats crocodiles. The hell?
And monitor lizards.
What?
That's no joke.
No. And it flies. No.
That's about your
It doesn't eat humans.
No, but it's my height. If I can look eye to eye with a bird, there's a problem. Like, I just can't do it.
I wonder if they can grab and fly with stuff. They could probably fly with something big.
Funny.
That picture of it in flight with its beak open, I mean, I could see immediately why he said dinosaur. I mean, it looks like a pterodactyl to me. You know, it's got that long stretch. And what did the wingspan? It's something like 8 feet.
8 feet.
Wingspan.
It eats crocodiles. Oh, are we forgetting that it eats crocodiles? Like, nobody wants to like comment on what that means? That's crazy.
Well, I mean, does it eat like Australian saltwater crocodiles that are 22 feet long, or does it just eat little baby crocodiles? I mean, I could eat a baby crocodile, and it'll probably taste like chicken.
Everything tastes like chicken.
Well,
So this kind of raised a thought for me of what other kind of irrational fears, which ultimately are phobias, do we have? I know, Erica, for you, it's like disproportionate things. Brett, this is not an opportunity for you to make a joke. Things that are too large for the natural environment, or so what are our irrational fears? And if we even know that they are irrational fears,
I
have
have
we
one.
ooh, let's hear it.
Clowns.
Oh,
I
yeah.
do not like clowns. And the
Yeah.
reason for it is very simple, because when I was about maybe 4 years old, and I remember it well, maybe I was 5, we went to the circus, and it was a really famous circus because there was a television series about this circus. It's the biggest in Germany. It was out in the television, and we actually went to go to the actual circus. So I was very excited because we watched this program all the time. And my parents would say, and the clowns, they're funny and they're lovely, and the clowns, and they really hyped up those funny clowns. And all I could see was a very mean man with paint on the face, who had a smiley face painted, but they were just mean to each other. They hit each other, they tripped each other up. For me, they were bullies. They weren't funny at all. I didn't find them a bit funny. They were just bullies. And I took a dislike to people wearing a mask and pretending and not being the real thing. And that was when I was young. And from that on, I hated clowns always, because for me, they're the symbol of dishonesty.
Wow.
They laugh to you
Interesting.
and then they kill you in the background. So the
Mm,
movie It
nope.
just proves my point, right?
Yeah, I'm
I
thinking,
love
is
that
this
movie.
such a what? You love
You
that
love
movie?
that movie.
No, I don't, because I agree. And I'm thinking, is this an irrational phobia? Because I think if you like clowns, there's something wrong with you because
Yeah.
they're terrifying.
I mean, I don't know if there was a new generation of clown phobics, there's probably a proper word for that, I'm sure there is, that came out like after the book, the novel It, and then the various movies. There's been a couple. Or whether it's kind of a natural thing, and Stephen King just tapped in to that fear that people have. I mean, whilst it's an irrational fear, let's say, it's quite a common one. You know, Gabby, when you said clowns, I would have, if people said to me, what is people's top phobia? Two come to mind. One is buttons, because I had a
Buttons,
girlfriend a while back
Buttons?
who,
like
yeah,
buttons, like the
she was
thing on your clothes.
buttons. Yeah, she was a
What?
purely Velcro and zip. I mean, she actually had a bit of a Velcro fetish. If you want to see somebody react bizarrely, just like get some Velcro and she would be in bits. But buttons, she was fiercely opposed to, and clowns. So,
She was opposed to buttons, or she was afraid of buttons.
she was irrationally phobic. She had an irrational fear of buttons.
That is so interesting to me.
Huh.
But chlorophobia, I just looked it up. Chlorophobia is the fear of clowns.
Right. So they've given it a proper name.
Yeah, because they're terrifying as hell, man. Like, clowns are not fun. No way.
And do you know, a couple of Halloweens ago, there was, and I don't know, maybe it's still a trend, of like somebody dressed clown like, dragging a, I don't know, sledgehammer or something around. And it is terrifying. And I actually had to remonstrate with, I didn't have to, I chose to shout at the top of my voice, if you come in this road, I'm going to punch you. And thankfully, he wasn't like a real demon who would have ignored me, he kind of went, "It's only a costume," and carried on walking. But I was not having him in my street. That was for sure.
Hysterical. Oh my god.
What about you, Brett? You're a man's man. Come on, it's like, how are you doing? What is terrifying irrationally to you?
I don't know. I don't. I guess I'd have to be in the moment. I don't know. I don't mind
Nothing you
clowns.
avoid?
I don't
Like,
mind. Yeah. If I saw a clown dragging a sledgehammer, I might. I don't know. Like those videos. When I see those videos, I'm like, man, I might chase that guy. I might run at him and be like, "What the hell is this?" Like, and just run at him. You know. I
Yeah,
saw one with a clown. There's one guy like dragging a sledgehammer, walking over, and then there's another one that sneaks up behind the two guys, and he's got a chainsaw. And he's trying to start it. So all of a sudden, he waits till the clown starts getting close to the two guys, and all of a sudden, the clown behind him starts trying to start a chainsaw. He's like, "Rah, rah, rah," and they look and they're like, "What the hell?" And then they start running. He throws the chainsaw. He starts chasing them. I
so
was
you
like,
saw a video with a bunch of different clowns trying to scare each other. Is that what you're saying?
Two people. There was two clowns and two people. Two people
Oh.
were sitting at like a bus stop.
Oh, I see.
One clown came over from the one side. The other clown snuck around and came up from the back side.
No way.
yeah, that
Actually,
would
No
end
way.
in violence for sure.
Yeah, no fucking way. I'd have a heart attack and die right on the spot. There's no way.
I'm just waiting for the one time when somebody just pulls out a gun and is like, and they're like, all right, now we're even.
So, Gabby, coming back to, I mean, that's quite a profound realization as a young child to see through this facade. And it's not like you're scared of, a phobia tends to, you think of like, shaking, quivering, the way sometimes people react to spiders, say, or a mouse. But you actually saw through this facade and you saw something that was hidden. And it's obviously had an effect, like through your entire life.
Yeah, it's not that I'm afraid. I can sit beside a clown, or yeah, it's not that I'm afraid. I'm not running away. I'm not screaming. It's not a phobia. It's a phobia, but I do not trust clowns. And it's funny, and Erica hinted a little bit at it. If I meet somebody, and I'm sorry because I have a few friends who worked as clowns professionally, right? And I hope they don't hear that. But I had a long time to actually go and trust them because for me, people who want to be clowns are suspicious. Why would anybody want to be a clown? I don't get it, right? Because it's wearing this mask and being not what it's not this character you're portraying outside. What you actually do, your actions don't match your mask. It's for me, if I meet somebody and they said, "Oh, I work as a clown," I go, I would need to meet them really for the next year and realize they're actually a really nice person before I would trust them. My instinct is not to trust them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, John Wayne Gacy is one of the most famous serial killers of all time, and he worked as a clown. And he was like a murderer, rapist, whatever. So, yeah, if it's the I work as a clown, is like, well, hold on, I'm going to step over here for a minute and think about that.
Yeah, and I actually, back in the policing days, worked. How much can I say about that? Let's just say that the subject was a clown. In fact, he'd been like world number one clown at one point and was a predatory offender. I think I can get away with saying that.
Well, we're going to find out.
And it was terrifying to see the ease with which he was able to like befriend a child and be coming to, let's say, an over intimate space, and Gabby's parents, and this is no criticism of your parents, but it's like, we're going to see the clowns. The clowns are funny, and you're kind of being ushered into a belief about the way you should react to something, and you had a very visceral response to that, and it was a firm no.
Yeah. And it's funny because I have one friend who loves clowns, but she had a completely different experience. The first clown, she was a different type, kind of. It wasn't the circus. I hit you with the the plastic hammer over head clown. It was a different thing, and she doesn't understand at all where I'm coming from. So it's all down to experience again. And I think this is really what anyone who has actually a real phobia probably would need to ask themselves: where is it actually coming from? When did it start?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, which brings it very firmly into the kind of stuff that we talk about and that we work with people on, because there is a belief there, like an archetype or an archaeology of a belief that has grown and probably been reinforced in some cases. For each of us, there's examples there of clowns really not being what they seem to be. And this holds true for many of the issues that people develop mentally. It's either a perspective that is inherently incorrect for some reason but has been reinforced, or is a reaction that holds genuine truth, as in your case about facades. Because I'm guessing, and you kind of intimated, that you look for that even in people who are not clowns. You see behind people's facades quite easily. Is that
Yeah.
the case? Yeah.
That's a pretty cool thing to have had as a young child, right? Be equipped with that at a young age and carry that with you to be able to know that.
Yeah. I wonder, you mentioned actually parents, and it doesn't need to be the parents, but I wonder how much actually reactions of other people influence when we um, develop a phobia. Because we say irrational phobia because people are afraid of things, also never anything happened to them. I'm sure your friend never was attacked by a button, right? I have, yeah, but but it's there for her. It's real. So where does this come from? What happened where she actually associated such a negative thing with buttons? I have a friend who is afraid of statues. She would not stand under tall statues because she has a fear that they fall on her. Where does this come from?
Yeah.
Right? Maybe when we were little, maybe very subconsciously, but I mean, I have seen when you watch Friends, right, and they don't realize why the kids are suffering from anxiety, and then you watch the parents and go like, well, right. I had a really good example where two of the children had to go to therapy because of terrible anxiety attacks, to the point where one didn't want to leave the house anymore. But I listened to that lady talking to the kids for years when they grew up, and it was literally, where are you going? What are you doing? I don't want you to go down that alleyway, and blah blah blah, and this, and who is with you? And I don't like this guy now. I don't want you to hang around with. That was the talk. That's what I heard all day long. I wasn't surprised that they developed anxiety, right? And I wonder with phobias, um, if the if a loved one, it doesn't matter, it doesn't need to be the parents, could be a sibling or somebody in school, is terribly afraid of something and starts screaming, and you're only little and you see that, are you starting doing the same? Are you starting copying the behavior? Because initially we all want to keep ourselves safe. That's the function of our brain, is to keep us safe. So if the brain picks up something like, oh, this must be really dangerous, look how everybody else is reacting, you may do exactly the same, and you may can't remember it because you maybe were only 3 years old.
Well, I mean, you're actually reminding me very clearly of the monkey experiment, where they exposed some monkeys to a a stimulus and it caused like a panic response. And then they gradually took the monkeys that had actually had the experience out of the cage and replaced them with completely new monkeys, who then learned from the others that that stimulus was something to be scared of. So ultimately, they ended up with an entirely new cage of monkeys who had never experienced the original stimulus,
Hmm.
and yet they all responded to it because it had been passed to them one to another. And therein lies the root of many of the world's ills. This is the way something is. We behave like this to that group of people because 200,000 years ago, one of them branded a stick towards one of our relatives.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, we
Mm-hmm.
need to work out what underlies all of these types of things and address them if they're, and particularly like kids inheriting a parental anxiety or a familial anxiety. Um, yeah.
It's an interesting concept because when we talk about it, this is very like, I'm going to use the word negative, like loosely, negatively like based kind of thing, right? Handing off your anxieties or your fears to others that come after you just because. But if you flip it around, it's the same thing. Like traditions and everything else are handed off the same way, right? It's like we do it this way because this is how somebody back in the old days, did it this way, and this is why we do it this way, kind of thing. It's
And
the same thing.
2/3 of the world, or more potentially, believes that once a year you have to be quietly in your bed so a stranger can come in your room and empty their sack. And if
Yeah.
you're not quiet, then they won't be there. And we pass that on as a good thing. One night of the year you must allow a stranger to come into your most sacred space.
I mean, are we talking about Santa Claus here?
We're
Because
talking
I
about
am
Santa.
not going to have any ill will towards Santa in my presence.
Well, thankfully, this is not a Christmas edition.
You gotta
Yeah.
believe. You gotta believe, man. You gotta believe.
But Santa at least brings presents. It's
Right.
something
At least he
nice.
brings something. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, the tooth fairy,
Yeah.
they leave some money. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta believe.
Oh, the Tooth Fairy. There was a pretty scary movie about the Tooth Fairy.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? It's a good point, Alec, because if you look at religions have a lot of rules. All religions have a lot of rules. And some of the rules made sense 500
Mm-hmm.
years ago, 1,000 years ago, because they didn't have refrigerators or,
Mm-hmm.
life was different. So, for example, not eating pork in hot countries makes complete sense because pork meat goes off really, really quickly. So
Mm-hmm.
if you live in a country with 40 degrees, if you slaughter a pig, the meat probably gone off within a day. So it's a very good idea not to eat pig meat. Very good. It's hygienic, right? Nowadays we have fridges, right? And I'm not saying, I'm suggesting that, even Christians, because in the old Bible it says don't eat pork. We shouldn't actually eat it in theory either. But there's one thing on having a rule because it was introduced once because it made sense. It was hygienic. They didn't know what caused the meat to rot that quickly, but they knew it made you ill. It made sense. But then today, having rules that people go nuts and punish people if they don't do so, it just makes no sense anymore. Do you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying with the old rules and regulations and still having the mind stuck in something which made sense 2,000 years ago before we had technology.
Yeah, and I think I've shared this before, but the space shuttle, when it used to go up into space, you'll probably all be aware it had the booster rockets and it had the main tank, and those booster rockets were a certain size based on a tunnel that they had to go through on a train once they'd been made. The tunnel and the train tracks were built in line with the gauge of the railway that America has used since the 1800s. which was based on the size of the train tracks in the rest of the world. Those were based on the width of the cart. The cart was based on the width of a Roman chariot, and the Roman chariot was based on the width of 2 horses' arses. So the thing that took us into space was based on the size of 2 horses' arses from the Roman Empire. So there's an example of conformity in an organisation that goes through 2,000 years and impacts our potential exploration of space. All because, those rockets, they've got to go through that tunnel, which means they can only be so long. If I can find the original source of that story, I'll share it somewhere. But fact. And it's absurd, isn't it?
Well, all I'm thinking is I'm really glad that I will never not eat pork. So I'm really glad that I don't have to worry about this. This is what I'm thinking. I'm like, I cannot even imagine a life of not eating like bacon or like a pork chop because I love it so much. So yeah, it's all insanity if you ask me.
But the point, see, the point I'm making is, and don't get me wrong, if somebody is deeply religious and they don't eat pork for that reason, fine, there's nothing wrong with it. But having a system where you might punish people because you say God said so, and you're actually punishing people for maybe not doing so, that's where, for me, I'm starting questioning things, right? And personally, then I'm wondering, where do I have in my life rules and regulations I have adopted for myself, which actually came from the past and actually makes absolutely no sense or reason. What have I taken from my culture, from my own culture forward, from the culture I grew up in, the family culture, whatever it is, what have I taken with me to actually sit down and say, hold on, why am I doing this? This makes no sense. This is actually stressing me out. Why do I still have this rule in my life? Only because maybe my grandparents passed it on to you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like, how many rules are you living your life by that aren't even your own rules? That's a good question to ask. So I don't know if we're wrapping this up soon or not, but before we do, I have to let you all know that the phobia of buttons is actually called Koumpounophobia. I don't know. I'm putting it in the chat so you can all see what it is, but it is a real thing. That is a real thing. I'm shocked. I've learned so much today.
I will. Yeah, and it's spelled really weirdly.
Yeah.
Koumpounophobia.
Koumpounophobia.
Yes, let's wrap up. Have we got any closing thoughts from Mr. C? He's looking at
He's reading the word.
Yeah. So, closing comments. I think we have all programs from growing up that we're kind of carry with us, and some of them drive the way we make our decisions. So there's something there in that kind of goes right along with this. So, in looking at that, I'm like, well, I guess, unconsciously we hand things down, whether we like it or not. And it's not really us looking to hand it down. It's somebody's perception of what we're doing. Yeah. So it's interesting to look at and think about.
Thank you. Any other closing thoughts? Erica's still stuck in the land of pork and bacon.
Pork, bacon, buttons, stork bill, whatever, shoebill storks, all sorts of stuff today. I guess the biggest thing is, reevaluate your own rules and live your life by what works for you.
And I think for me, it's the realization that whatever phobia we have, it's something which got developed for whatever reason. And I think we can actually all make choices. And I think the only way to do it is actually get familiar with whatever we fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because the fear is irrationally, right? The fear is irrational. So the only way to train our brain to actually realize, hold on, I'm not in danger, is actually fun enough to put us into the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would just like to share once again Mr. Corey Ewing and what started all this off.
Ever heard the Shoebill stork's mating call?
I just want to ask myself the question, what is it about me that stops me attracting women when I go out making the sound of a machine gun? See you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.